Hey everyone! God, you're all looking fine today, aren't you? Well, we finally got to the end of the year and man, what a year it's been. It's good to see some movies finally coming out this year that were meant to come out ages ago. And to celebrate the year, I want to give you a good old top 10 list of just things that I enjoyed the most. Forewarning, I've not seen every movie that's come out this year. Kingsman and Ghostbusters are to name a few of them, so they definitely won't be on this list. But I think I've seen plenty enough this year already to be able to make a decent enough list that will hopefully inspire some of you guys to check some of these things out if you haven't already. And for a lot of these movies I'm going to be talking about, I've done full reviews for them already earlier this year, and I'll chuck those links down in the description below. But right, yeah, let's dive in. A interesting story to tell that I never knew existed, told in a very strange comedic way. House of Gucci takes my number 10 on the list. I'm a sucker for biopics and I wanted to include one in my list if I could, and I think this one's a great example. This tells the glamorous story of the Gucci family done through some really great performances. I had a lot of fun with this one and you could tell Lady Gaga was the absolute show stealer in here. It's one that I definitely recommend checking out. With a lot of horror movies feeling pretty lazy these days, full of tropes and poor storytelling and just typical jump scares, it was amazing to see what Edgar Wright could do with the horror genre. And I feel like Shaun of the Dead doesn't really count because that's more a comedy than horror anyway. And he gave us The Last Night in Soho. Whilst the horror elements of this film aren't necessarily original, there are just some beautifully shot scenes in here. Thomasin McKenzie and Anya Taylor-Joy are both really great here. And as far as horrors / dramas go, this is one of my favourites of the year, no doubt. Moving from horror to comedy, we got a film that, whilst being a comedy / action, was also a surprisingly heartwarming and wholesome story, which is why I'm putting Free Guy number 8 on my list. I think the concept of this film is great and the jokes for the most part land really well. Ryan Reynolds is Ryan Reynolds again, but he's the best version of Ryan Reynolds that I've seen for a while. Great action scenes, mostly consistent and great CGI, and it's just a movie that leaves you feeling really happy by the end of it. And it definitely deserved the praise and success that it's been receiving. 7th on my list is a sequel to a movie I absolutely loved. Not necessarily horror, but more of a thriller arguably. But it's a really interesting concept and it's always something that I'm going to be happy exploring more of in the future. And that is A Quiet Place Part 2. The returning cast in here are great, specifically Millicent Simmons, who plays an amazing lead in this film. Plus, Cillian Murphy makes for a great choice to add to this world as well. I'd definitely love to see more of the day one event that happened in the start of this film, and hopefully we see some more in this franchise to come. This was originally higher up on my list in terms of number, not score that is, if that makes sense. But I watched it last week and I was just reminded of how funny this was. That combined with some original characters, some unique action scenes, and a sequel that redeems its predecessor by leaving a better taste in your mouth. Yes, the Suicide Squad takes number 6 on this list. James Gunn finally gets to stretch his wings out on a 15 rated superhero movie, where you truly feel that every character is expendable and in danger. Well, besides Harley Quinn. Some great jokes, some great characters that I'd love to see more of, and it's one that you should definitely check out. Starting on the top half of this list, we go from supervillains to superheroes. And when you get that and combine it with martial arts that remind you of the good old era of Jackie Chan and Jet Li, you get ShangChi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. As far as hero origin movies go, this is up there as one of the best for me. Some really well shot choreographed fight scenes make for one of the more refreshing Marvel movies that we've seen for a long time. The music in here is pretty great too. If you're an MCU fan, this is a no-brainer and I'm just pumped to see what they do next with these characters. Now, I've not really seen enough anime this year, or at least anime released this year, to do a whole separate top 10 list for anime, but I really think this movie deserved some attention and love, providing one of the most intense finales to an anime movie I've seen in such a long time. And that's the Demon Slayer movie. A movie that acts as a sequel to the first season, which is also incredible. It's just a combination of great artwork and and just stunning visuals all around. That alone wouldn't be enough, but it also manages to introduce this really great lovable new main character. That with the evolution of an already interesting story and a combination of some really beautifully done fight scenes. The whole series is worth getting into, and this movie was such a great addition, and I just cannot wait to binge season 2 once it's all finally aired. Oh, alright, top 3. This almost definitely should have been in the top 10 movies for 2019, but after 2 years of delays, we finally get the spy movie that we were all wanting to see. And no, I'm not talking about The King's Man, I'm talking about No Time to Die. Daniel Craig gives us his last performance as James Bond, and he certainly goes out with a bang. In a very emotionally driven James Bond movie that I don't think we've really seen in previous Bond films. Car chases were awesome, action choreography was great, and I think this is my favourite performance of Daniel Craig's James Bond that we've seen. It's definitely worth seeing, and well, here's to the next 4 years of mindless speculation over the next Bond. The penultimate film on this list is our only sci-fi film entry, giving us as much spectacle and amazement as any Star Wars movie could. Not 8 or 9. And yes, it's Dune. Visually, this was the best looking movie of any film I saw this year. The cinematography was incredible, the locations were stunning, and I think the CG altogether was just immaculate. The world felt fleshed out and huge, in the sense that it feels like a world, not just a town. We had an amazing cast bring us into these fascinating new worlds, with Denis Villeneuve giving us a great rendition of what was a really popular book. Waiting for part 2 is gonna feel like an eternity, but it's definitely gonna be worth the wait. So writing this top 10 list, I thought to myself, is it more important to be a fanboy or a critic? Is it more about enjoying the film than the movie itself being critically great? And trying to figure out which one was my top 10, the answer was, yeah, I'm a fanboy, and I definitely think enjoyment is the most important part of the film. Because Spider-Man No Way Home is without a doubt my favourite movie of 2021. No other film has given me that cinematic experience that Endgame managed to produce 2 years ago. And I've seen this movie again since I last talked about it, and it's just as enjoyable even when you know everything that's coming your way. It's definitely one worth seeing, and looking at the numbers, it's got like the second highest domestic opening of all time, so it seems like everyone else was happy to see it as well. I also think it's just crazy that not even a pandemic can stop the results that this movie is reaching. So yeah, that was my list. Hopefully you found it somewhat agreeable. If you had other ideas for what should be on the top 10 list, let me know down in the comments below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I've been doing this for nearly 2 years now, and this year in particular, I felt like I saw some great successes, and I just want to say thank you for all of your support and love. It really does mean a lot. And on that note, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. I'll be back in 2022 with more reviews of movies, anime, and video games. Until then, take care guys. See you later.